SteelSeries sent over the Rival 700, which is the kind of top-end gaming mouse. This is rather interesting. It's mostly aimed at FPS users, although it can be customized quite heavily to your suiting, so that's also pretty awesome, and has a few interesting features that no other mice on the planet have. Let's take a look. Taking a quick look at the box, we can see the main two features are kind of listed on the sides here. First of all, the tactile click, which is a vibration motor inside the mouse, and we also have the OLED screen on the left-hand side as well. So that's very interesting, and we're going to cover both of these in just a second, so do stick around as these are very kind of main and very interesting points to the mouse. Taking a look inside the box, we can see a rather interesting design and flip open, which is just quite cool. You also get the mouse as well as two USB cables. These are proprietary cables, so do bear in mind that, but they have a very interesting connection mechanism. Now, this mouse has isn't a wireless mouse in any fashion like most mice that have removable USB cables, but is a very interesting overall style as it has a right-angled micro USB connector that locks in and then you can remove quite easily. This is a very interesting mechanism, means that it's very easy to transport, and overall is just pretty cool. I overall quite like it. It's certainly a very nice connection method. I don't necessarily like that it's micro USB, but I do like that it has the reinforcing pins, so you're not actually putting much pressure on the port itself rather than the sort of plastic pins that stick up into the mouse. Taking a look around the mouse, as you can see on the back, you have the SteelSeries logo. This is an RGB LED zone, because of course it is, as is the scroll wheel in fact, and just above the scroll wheel you have the CPI changing button. You also have left and right clicks, and on the left hand side you have the OLED screen up the front, as well as three buttons on the side, and on both the left and the right side you have a fairly tactile, grippy feel, which is pretty nice for holding onto it. Now for me, I found this quite a skinny mouse, which is something to bear in mind if you have larger hands. It did mean that for me this mouse just isn't the most comfortable. For me the Rival 500 was just a lot more comfortable as it's a lot wider, but at the same time, if you have smaller hands or you prefer stuff like the Logitech G900 anyway, then this sort of style of mouse might be for you. This mouse uses a PixArt PMW3360 sensor, widely known as one of the best sensors on the market, so that's always good to hear. But besides the other standout features of the OLED screen and the vibration motor or tactile click, you also actually have fully replaceable sensors. With 4 screws on the bottom, you can pull out the sensor unit and chuck in a new one, which is actually a very simple and easy to do procedure. SteelSeries are currently selling the PixArt 9300, which is a laser sensor. It's known as the best laser sensor available, so if you prefer that option and you want to go there, I think it's an extra £25 to pick one of those up, but it does mean even if the sensor unit dies or whatever, or you just want to change it out in the future, it's a really sort of future-proof kind of way of doing things, and just quite cool if that's something you're interested in. So let's take a look at the OLED screen. Now this is a rather interesting thing. Actually, just as a point of note, it has a bit of a rolling shutter effect in the eye when you move it around, so if you're doing anything with that screen, I recommend just leaving it perfectly still and you might be better off. But otherwise, it's quite interesting. You can do a lot of stuff outside of the Steelseries Engine software. You actually can do a lot in the mouse by holding the CPI button down for 5 seconds and then using the scroll wheel to navigate and the middle click button to sort of enter and have a select button as such. So it's a quite interesting thing. You can change what configuration you're in, you can change your overlay settings, you can change the contrast or basically brightness for the screen. There's a couple of other interesting things as well, so it's certainly something that I would need to get used to. I think there also needs to be a little bit more game support for this to be really kind of interesting. I think mostly at the moment it's Dota and CSGO, and I think Minecraft potentially as the 3 main games that kind of support this properly. So once some more games are added, it might be very interesting. Now I can't show you what the vibrate or tactile click looks like necessarily, but I can talk to you about the experience of it. Now for me, it's actually pretty interesting. You can have it mapped so that it's a timer type thing, so when you press a button, it will then activate the timer and then buzz when that timer is done. So that's normally meant to be used for stuff like when you're casting spells in MMOs and you've got a cooldown timer, it will buzz to let you know that you can now do that spell again. So that is quite nice, but at the same time, you can also have it mapped so that when you press any button, you can have it immediately buzz as well, so it kind of lets you know that you've actually pressed that key. It also works well for if you have buttons on your keyboard that you press, say F to melee, you can have the mouse vibrate as well. But at the same time, there is still a little bit of a limited game support here, so you don't necessarily get the same sort of feeling if you have, say, an Xbox controller that vibrates as well, say, if you're going off rough terrain in GTA, for example. I'd quite like to see that sort of functionality be available if you want it. It's not necessarily going to make you the most accurate if your mouse is vibrating all the time, but it would be a nice, bit more of a sort of inclusive gaming experience, I think, which would be quite nice to see. So what's I like to game on? Well, because my hands are a little bit big and the way that I like to hold mice are kind of not compatible with this mouse necessarily. This wasn't the perfect mouse for me necessarily, but at the same time it was very accurate, it was ridiculously good to play with, and especially when I was playing Doom, as you can see in the test footage, I was really impressed by my overall accuracy with this mouse. So again, a very impressive experience, I think, especially if you're moving towards the pro gaming side, and especially if you're on the FPS side of things. I think you might really like this mouse if a sort of slightly thinner mouse is the one that you prefer. So I think that's kind of that, really. A quick look around the SteelSeries Engine. This is actually a pretty well overall designed piece of software. It's very easy to add macros, it's very easy to change the CPI settings. You do only have 2 modes though, which is a bit of a shame, and while you can, I believe, do a sniper mode with one of the buttons on the side if you want to, there is a lot of customizability. You can add macros, you can change the lighting setup if you want to, and overall just a pretty good piece of software. When it comes to scoring, I think for me this is a pretty good value for money when it comes to, you know, high-end gaming mice. I think I'm going to go for a 4 here with a 5 for performance. When it comes to the functionality, a few software tweaks could really make this amazing, and I think a few of the added features that this mouse has, the removable sensor, the OLED screen, and the vibration, could be really fantastic with a bit more support. So I think for me it has to be a 4.5 with an asterisk of a 5, in that the hardware features are definitely all there, that's definitely a 5, but software could be a little bit better on the 4.5 side of things. In terms of styling, it's a really nice and stylish mouse, so I'm going to get about a 5. And TechteamGB score, I think, is going to be a 4.5 with a gold award. I think if they had a little bit more support on the software side for more games, I think it'd have to be a top tier, but for now it's going to be a gold. But yeah, really impressive mouse. If you want to know more about the mouse or check out the price where you are, please do use the links in the description down below to check it out. And otherwise, if you are buying anything else on Overclockers UK or Amazon, then please do use the links in the description down below. It genuinely does help me out, it supports the videos and all that sort of stuff, so if you could use those, that would be fantastic. Also feel free to check me out on Facebook and Twitter as well. I've got loads of updates and posts and all that sort of stuff that go on in those. That's at TechteamGB on both. Otherwise, feel free to check out some of the other videos. I'll leave it over here for you and the subscribe button over this side. And otherwise, yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Feel free to subscribe if you did. And otherwise, yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.